well-known influencer Heavy D is out of jail, and he's declaring victory over environmental lawyers. Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. The story's come up a lot last couple days in the news. And just last night, Heavy D posted a video, and his lawyer posted a video. I got up very early this morning and wrote a long article on pickuptrucktalk.com. Let's go over what happened. I'm going to give you the full story. I'm going to give you Heavy D's side, his lawyer's sides, and the group that sued them, their side of the story. Give you the full picture. I'm also going to do this as a podcast because I think I'm going to tell this story one time in this type of format because I'm going to have to go back to bed at some point. So the story is here on pickuptrucktalk.com. I'll put a link down in the description below if you want to read it instead of listening to me talk about it. Let's go through it. It's got many pieces, twists and turns, villains and heroes, and it's really not what you think it's going to be about. It's really interesting, the story. And I'd be really curious to get your comments down below. So you may have noticed, gentlemen, if you don't, this is Heavy D. His name is Dave Sparks. There was a Diesel Brothers TV show that's pretty famous from on Discovery Channel, ran from like 2016 to 2020. And he was well known in the diesel community. He has a lot of cool rigs. Black Hawk helicopters, one of his toys, many toys. He lives in Utah. And he was taken to custody last Tuesday, and he was taken into Utah County Jail by a U.S. Marshal. And he was put into what he said was solitary confinement for 3 days. And he was released on Thursday after a court hearing, and they made a video on Saturday. Him and his lawyer made videos. So the videos we'll talk about in just a minute. But what was this case about? So this case was in 2017. A group called the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, UPHE, sued several defendants. Okay. And they basically was a group of people around Heavy D and Dave Sparks, and a bunch of his businesses, licenses, that kind of things. They alleged Heavy D illegally removed or tampered with emissions control devices on diesel trucks. This is a practice called rolling coal. And Heavy D does not dispute this. In his videos, he's like, yeah, they had videos of us doing it. They had a lot of videos of other people doing it. You know, the case was kind of wonky, but they had videos of this stuff. And as the story goes, this group bought one of his trucks, drove it to Denver, and they had emissions testing done on it, and it failed spectacularly. It did not pass emissions at all. The lawsuit was filed as a citizen enforcement action under the Clean Air Act for the amount of $114 million. There's a couple key things here. The Clean Air Act is a federal crime. It's a federal thing, right? It's a purview of the Environmental Protection Agency. A lot of people think this is the EPA went after Diesel Brothers. They did not. This is a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. Now, also, this was a case brought by the Utah Physicians Group, the UPHE. So this is a civil matter in court. They can sue for a monetary amount as much as they want. They can make up any number they want to. And so that's how they did this, okay? The U.S. District Court for the District of Utah found Heavy D liable, along with other people, for violations of the Clean Air Act. So the first court found Heavy D liable. They said, yeah, he broke the law. And they found in for the defendants. The defendants appealed the judgment to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. This court made a really interesting ruling. This court upheld parts of the case that, yes, the trucks were deleted. They were deleted trucks. And they ruled the defendants to pay only the $843,000 in lawyer fees. That was it. And we'll get more to that as well. But it also prohibited the defendants from installing defeat devices and from owning or selling any vehicles with inoperable emissions control systems. Over the past several years, there have been several court hearings from the UPHE lawyers to collect those fees. So the issue is $843,000 in lawyer fees that have not been collected. There's been several hearings that hasn't been paid. So Heavy D did a video on Instagram. I linked to it there in the story. You can go watch it, and he talks about the whole case. And I want to give you both sides of the case. So I want to give you his point of view, his lawyer point of view, and UPHE point of view as well. So you can go watch that video, come back, what do you want to do? And feel free to get this right down below. But basically, what in his Instagram video, I give you all the highlights of this and quotes. First, he states he spent 3 days in solitary confinement in the Utah County Jail, which is a little crazy to think about. Second, he says, don't believe the headlines. Well, hopefully you believe mine. He says this wasn't anything to do with any of the amount of the money he owes. He says, this is not about the amount of money I owe. It was instead about bad actors who are environmental lawyers that have twisted the law into personal profit machines. He says they've used those laws to chase blank checks of attorney fees. This isn't a story about avoiding payment, he said. This is a story about refusing to be exploited and exposing a system that has been abused for far too long. It was a really good video, by the way. This is a lawyer, Cole Cannon. Cole Cannon's actually got a really interesting video in history. He spoke at the Harvard Law as well. His lawyer posted a video named Cole the Law Father. In the video, he reminds the viewer there was no crime alleged or broken in this case, and it was strictly a civil matter. So it's interesting. So if the EPA had gone after Diesel Brothers and Heavy D, it had been a criminal matter because the Department of Justice would have got involved. He would have been found like guilty on a criminal case. This is a civil matter, so there was no law really broken from that standpoint. So it's interesting how you view this legally. But he was found guilty in a civil matter. Instead, he claims his client got sued by a group of zealous environmental doctors. They sued his client for $114 million, and he says it's absurd when you think about it in terms of just 20 trucks, limited mileage, off-road trucks for the most part. It is $5 million per truck in his view. And Dave Sparks, Heavy D, says with those trucks, they're mostly show trucks, off-road trucks. So when you think about the Clean Air Act, there's some provisions that allow you to do off-road only usage trucks that can be deleted. So there's some areas there that you can have trucks that don't have to meet emission standards. He claims those trucks that he did, the deleted trucks, were those type of trucks. Finally, he contends Heavy D is a hero for spending those days in jails, highlighting a bad law that needs to be fixed, allowing lawyers to collect ridiculous amounts of fees, even when they mostly lose a case, in his opinion. So the lawyer and Heavy D both think that they won an appeals court. That because when they went to the appeals court, they won, and they should not have to pay those ridiculous fees. Let's get more to that. This is attorney fees are the real issue. Heavy D states the attorney fees are the real issue. He says after the first judge ruled in favor of UPHE, they appealed it in appellate court. He says the crazy part is that the $114 million judgment got gutted down to just 1% of damages of those 20 trucks and diesel emissions equipment. That's because the court found they couldn't be liable for damages for the entire United States, only what happened in the state of Utah. And so that judgment, $114 million, got really shrunk down, and he was really only liable for the lawyer's fees. But the lawyer fees in this case, because he had appealed to the appellate court, rose up because the lawyer spent more time on the case. But the interesting part was the appellate court judge labeled UPHE the prevailing party and awarding them lawyer fees. What Heavy D says was much, much, much more than what the billing and what should be accepted. And he said the billing clock seemingly never being paused. He says, despite winning a massive part of our appeal, I still got treated like I lost it all. That's not justice, Heavy D said. That's extortion wrapped in legal paper. That was a great line. So he's in jail on Tuesday. He's fighting the excessive lawyer fees. Thursday, there's a hearing. This is if you're watch the video, there's a Utah courtroom. This is the picture of the courthouse. The Thursday hearing, according to Heavy D, was Cole Cannon's moment to shine. He says, quote, he came in swinging and shared 40 slides, showing the court how UPHE's lawyers have been misleading the court for years. Cannon challenged those lawyers to take the stand. They declined. Heavy D said you could feel the shift in the courtroom. Also said it was never about the penalties. He said he has paid plenty in fines, Department of Justice and the Department of Treasury and the EPA for Clean Air Act violations, which are completely separate from, quote, the circus over attorney fees. In the end, he said he got arrested for a crime, but not for a crime, but for a paperwork dispute. Says he has tried to settle for years to no avail. In his view, the lawyers for the UPHE don't want to settle. They want to keep dragging him in court, issuing press releases, dragging his name through the mud, because in his view, he's lost a lot of business. He's lost a lot of contacts over the years because of this lawsuit that came up in this, which makes sense. If you got your name dragged through court, businesses may not want to do business with you because of all this ongoing litigation. And so he thinks that's what's going on behind the scenes, is that the lawyers just want to keep making an example out of him. So court records do show, and I went back and looked through the court records, that Heavy D has shown up for several court hearings over the years. Before Cannon could finish, though, Heavy D said the judge called a private hearing and ordered his immediate release. Heavy D says he feels vindicated, winning a victory over the lawyers who have twisted the law, especially Laramie, Wyoming lawyer Reed Zars. He is planning on releasing a longer YouTube video with documentation backing up his statements on his Instagram video. Okay, that's their point of view. What about the environmental doctors, right? The oversized guys. Okay, so then let's talk about the group that sued Diesel Sellers, which is the business name under which Heavy D was operating under. And what do they have to say about this? Is it the environment or public health? This is the question. Is it the air? So they have a photo on their website that talks about the air pollution from one diesel truck that's been deleted is greater than the air pollution from 30 similar trucks that had their original pollution control equipment intact. So they're saying that if you delete one diesel truck, it's worse than 30 other diesel trucks on the road. Heavy D and his lawyer point out that it's really about the environment. They keep saying environment, environment, environment. The group that sued them, the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, states it's about public health. So they're stating something different. So they have a quote on their website where they basically claim that the Diesel brothers are turning these trucks into disease-generating machines. They claim their lawsuit is aimed at the 300% increase in pollution caused by these trucks without diesel emissions equipment. It's more than 30 times than a stock diesel truck without the equipment. That this pollution, without these pollution controls on these trucks, that creates more acute and chronic diseases that are caused by the air pollution. Now, they filed this lawsuit in a civil case in a violation of the Federal Clean Air Act. We talked about that as well. Now, that is a federal act that makes it illegal to tamper with emissions equipment. The group says any penalties will go to the federal treasury, not in bold to the UPHE. They emphasize the bold font. So they don't want the money. They want to just go to the federal treasury. They are worried about their patients and their chronic diseases. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about diesel emissions equipment and public health, because I found this really interesting. So I have a photo of a diesel particulate filter on the screen. But public health was actually the core reason for diesel emissions to begin with when this all started years ago. You may remember this. I was thinking about it. I faintly remember these news stories back then. But back in the 1990s and 2000s, scientists made the connection between vehicle emissions and public health issues such as lung cancer and respiratory issues. This is a large issue in cities, industrial areas, and more prevalent with diesel engines. I remember these stories that have these images of diesel buses, downtown Chicago, downtown New York, whatever, and how they're linking that to lung cancer. This directly created a diesel emission system in the first place. Actually, it came from Europe as well, but big cities in Europe, London and Paris had issues too. So the first step in diesel emissions was creating ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel. That reduced the particulate matter from diesel engines. This was cited in a 2001 heavy-duty engine and vehicle standards and heavy highway diesel fuel sulfur control requirements EPA document. They were going to phase in ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel from 2006 to 2012 to get refineries on board to create the fuel. Quoting from that document stated at that time, diesel exhaust or diesel particulate matter, soot, is likely to cause lung cancer in humans. Other health effects include aggravation of respiratory and cardiovascular disease, aggravation of existing asthma, acute respiratory symptoms, chronic bronchitis, and decreased lung function. It said is likely. Since 2001, and now we're in 2025, I'm going to tell you, those documents have been proven. More and more science has been done. It's pretty clear, I think, in 2025. I've had people who want to argue this, and go ahead, but I think it's pretty obvious to a lot of people these days that diesel exhaust is a problem. Now, this was followed by the diesel particulate filter, which literally removes particulate matter from diesel exhaust. As that photo shows, when you have the pre-treated exhaust go through the emissions of the diesel particulate filter and come out, it removes particulate matter. So it removes 80% of the particulate in the exhaust, making diesel run cleaner in terms of black carbon and fine soot. Particulates create lung cancer, according to the EPA and scientists, and Euro 6 standards and China and Europe. It's all the science goes back to this and public health. So that's what the group was suing over, was public health. It also, when used with the diesel exhaust fluid, removes further NOx gases from the exhaust. So long-term exposure to NOx gases leads to a host of lung issues and may play a role in heart and other cardiovascular diseases. What's interesting to me is somewhere along the last 20 years, the messaging around diesel emissions equipment has changed from public health to the environment. And I get to more about this in just a second. So I was like, what is this all about? What's the bottom line of this story? Because it's kind of crazy how this twists and turns. Our initial story focused on statements from Heavy D supporters who claimed it was a green new scam environmentalists who were going after him. We had quotes saying there was all these environments, it's all this green scam, the liberals are doing it, Democrats are doing this. I think it's interesting because it actually was Bush was in office, a Republican, when the diesel emission stuff went into place. So I'm just mystified by all this change in my lifetime, where diesel emissions became a very political topic and went from a Republican topic. Remember, Nixon created the EPA and he was a Republican, to now a hate the EPA and liberals. It's an environmental topic when it initially started as a public health topic. So it's interesting to me how it just has changed so much over the years. And it's interesting how the UPHE sees their case as a public health concern and not about the environment. So it's twisting and turning. Now, Heavy D and his lawyer used the word environment in their videos, but it seems more targeted at the lawyer fees themselves. While Heavy D asked in their video to respectfully call the UPHE and the Reed Law Office and ask, what did our lawyer fees have to do with cleaning Utah's air? Interesting question. It still feels more targeted at the amount of fees themselves. All I can say is this. About, I think, every Monday, I get an email that includes class action lawsuits, because I'm following class action lawsuits quite a bit. And there's always an item in there, a headline, from a judge who's blowing up lawyers over excessive fees. It can be in medical cases. It can be in automotive class action lawsuits. It can be cases like this. I always see these headlines for excessive lawyer fees. So to me, that's what this whole case was about. It wasn't about the environmental green scum. You can kind of pin it on that if you want to. I'm not going to make the argument for you either way. It wasn't about liberals and Democrats, as some people want to make it out to be, because to me, it's about public health. That's the way it was. And maybe things have changed. Maybe I missed something there. But to me, it's about excessive lawyer fees and how the billing practices of lawyers need to be reined in. Because, like I said, I see it in every industry that gets sued. You have excessive lawyer fees from the emails I get. Now, neither Heavy D or his lawyer, Cole Cannon, commented either one of the videos about whether the lawyer fees are completely wiped away. Are they gone completely? Neither one said anything. But Heavy D feels vindicated that he won a victory over these lawyer fees. Take that for what you will. Interesting. So thanks for watching or for listening today. As always, I will see you down the road.